Hi, this is Linda G. Robert, your solution lady and your coach. And if you've been listening to my audios or videos in the last few years or months, you'll notice that I also share some of my lessons learned or some of the things that have occurred to me or insights. And so today, that's what I'm going to be doing again. I want to tell you about something that's happened to me in the last few weeks. And in the last couple of weeks, week and a half ago, I received a call from my dad. And my dad and I, we don't live in the same city, just to kind of give you a bit of a background. We don't live in the same city. He calls me on occasion. I call him on occasion. So it's not like we talk to each other every day. But in the past, uh, there were some concerns and because of things he told me. So in the last week and a half, he called me pretty well out of the blue and told me that he wasn't doing well and that he wasn't sleeping properly. He was sleeping a lot, so his sleeping pattern was completely affected, and he wasn't eating, and that he had lost a lot of weight. Well, you can imagine that after I got off the phone with him that I started being concerned and I started being worried about him. So that was Tuesday, and that whole week, every time I closed my eyes, I can imagine what he might be going through. But I wasn't acting on it. I was just, kind of concerned. And then on the Saturday, this is last Saturday, as I'm doing some mindfulness practice, we were doing a loving and kindness practice, and my father came to my mind. And at that moment, I thought, I have to drive down to see how he's doing. And so basically, that's what I did. I packed a small bag and I drove 6 hours away. And this was the ironic thing, was that while I'm doing this, my neighbors and the city where I live, we were going through a lot of flooding, and the people that were going through the flooding were getting a lot of help. But I kept thinking of my father, who was alone in his apartment and not getting help. So it was a bit of ironic. Anyway, so I drove down, and when I got to his place, I had the key, so I was able to get into his apartment. I was just shocked, in a sense, to see him in the condition that he was. He had lost a lot of weight, and I was so concerned that right away I started suggesting that I take him to the hospital, or that he move in with me. And every time I suggested something, it was always no. I'm going to be fine, or I'll call the doctor on Monday. And there was always something that he would say that didn't correspond with what I wanted to suggest. At one point, I remember, I think I was there for about half an hour. I left because I wanted him to get something to eat. He had obviously lost a lot of weight and he hadn't eaten. So when I asked him what he wanted, he said an egg sandwich. So I went to a pharmacy, and I remember being at the pharmacy feeling all of this emotion. And this was a Saturday, and I wanted so much to be able to do something right here, right now. And I just needed to get that off get my emotions off. And I remember talking to the pharmacist and just trying to think of what I could do. And I had already thought of everything I could do, and I knew I couldn't do anything except maybe get the egg sandwich and a couple of cans of Ensure. Anyways, I'm going to try to fast forward a little bit. I went back and I made sure that he took a little bit to eat. And I went back on Sunday to just to see. In the meantime, I wasn't sure if I was going to stay there that night or, leave the next day. I wasn't sure. I just decided to kind of play that by ear, just go with my senses. So I drove back that Sunday. And for that whole week, Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I didn't sleep because all I had was visions of my father and concerns and worries that he wasn't fine. He wasn't well. I remember on the Monday calling the doctor and calling the pharmacist and just trying to see what I could do about this from a distance. And it was on Thursday that just a little bit of information here. My dad sleeps a lot. He was sleeping a lot. So when I call during the week, he's not answering the phone. And I knew why now because of the state that I left him in on the weekend. I knew that he slept a lot. And he didn't have his hearing aid, so couldn't hear the phone and wouldn't be getting up for the phone. So I knew that if I called, he could return the call when he did get up. And so that's what we've been doing is we had been communicating every day, but he's calling me because I'm at work. So he's leaving a message and I'm calling him, hoping he answers. So on the one day that I did decide to answer the phone, I was at work. My phone rang and I told him that I had called the doctor, that we're going to coordinate a meeting. And he refused. He blatantly said, I don't want the doctor to come to my place. So I was so upset, so frustrated with all the efforts that and I hope you're hearing these words that I'm using, that I'm exaggerating, the efforts that I had been putting in the last few days to try to coordinate something for the help of my dad. So on the Thursday, and I'm tired, I've been tired, I made a conscious decision to not worry. I gave myself permission to let it go because the worry and the concern that I had about my father, no matter how much concern I had, no matter how much I said to him, my response, I should say, let me back up. His response would have been the same. I'm going to be fine. I don't want help. I'm okay. But I didn't hear that for the whole week. So my concerns and worries were really building up in me to the point where I was really, really tired. When I gave myself permission to just not worry and let it go, I started feeling relief and release. I started feeling better and not as tired. I was able to sleep that night. And over the weekend, I started thinking of what had happened. Well, what had happened was that I was really trying to control a situation in which I had absolutely no control. And the reason I was trying to control it was because I wanted to feel that I was a good person, that I was a responsible person, that I was doing what I could to help my father, when at the end of the day, his choice was, I'm okay. So at which point do we sometimes exert a lot of energy into something that really does not belong to us? At which point do we need to say that I need to respect that person's boundaries? I need to respect that the concerns that I have, the frustrations that I have are mine. They're actually my concerns. And no amount of time, um, no amount of energy will change that. My father will still be in his condition because he chooses to be in that condition. He never asked me for help. He didn't say, I need your help. It was I that almost imposed myself on him. And that was the reason why I was so tired and exhausted. My mind was preoccupied with how am I going to resolve this issue? This issue that, in a sense, did not belong to me. I think that's the hardest part when we see our parents suffering and when we see them helpless and when we hear what they say. We have a natural tendency, I have a natural tendency to want to help when, in this case, he didn't want help. He still, to this day, does not want help. So, acceptance is challenging sometimes. It's very challenging. And what I need to do is to remind myself that my energy needs to be managed differently. Needs to be managed differently. And so the amount of love that I have for my father, or the amount of energy that I have, or the amount of concern that I have, is mine. Is mine. And that at the end, I can only manage my energy by taking care and making sure that it's used in the right way. Because when I was trying to manage energies that were out of my control, out of my hands, I was feeling tired. I was feeling tired. I was feeling exhausted because it was all energies that was inside me. And when I decided to kind of let that, give myself permission to let it go and to just accept this moment, I wasn't as tired anymore. I was able to sleep good. So I'm not sure if that's making any sense to you, but it was a revelation to me that I need to pay more attention to the moment. For example, when I asked my dad last Saturday, I was thinking it was time for me to leave, and I asked my dad, what do you want? And he told me, I want to go to bed. I want to go to bed. I'm tired. I want to go to bed. I needed to respect that. I needed to hear what he said. Instead of saying, well, how about if, and trying to manage that or control that or manipulate that. I needed to say, okay. And that's what I did. I said, okay. And I give him a kiss, and I said, I'll call you tomorrow. So oftentimes we don't listen. We don't really listen. And you know what? I'll be honest with you. When I was came back and I started, talking to the pharmacist and talking to the doctors, I thought, how can I get him declared incompetent because he's not taking care of himself? And believe me, I thought he's not taking care of himself. And so I was trying to figure out all these different ways that I could change his situation when he tells me he's fine. So, it's one of those things that's very, very challenging to go through, and to live when our loved ones aren't doing as well as what we'd like them. When we want things more than they do, it's hard to live in that fear or in that pain or in that frustration. It's very difficult because we want to change that. I wanted to change how I felt, by calling the doctor, for example, or by driving 6 hours away. I wanted to change that because I was not comfortable with that feeling of helplessness. What do we do when we're helpless like that? Well, I've learned now, and I've done this before. I've learned to pray again. I've learned to accept that I'm helpless in this particular moment. I've learned to try to be in this specific moment, by moment, by moment, by moment. Because to be uncomfortable with a feeling and to try to change that feeling isn't always in our best interest. It's not always in our best interest. When I came back from that weekend, I was now um, seeing my father in his condition. I couldn't sleep all that week because I was seeing him thin and imagining him not eating properly. It was very challenging for me. And that's something that I put upon myself because of my instinct or my desire to make a change, to change something. So the bottom line was sometimes it's best to not really know. And this is the challenge, isn't it? Sometimes it's best to not really know another person's reality. Because the minute I knew what his reality was, it affected me. It affected my emotions, it affected my body, it affected my mind. And so, how often do we actually do that to ourselves? Take on something that really doesn't belong to us. And when we do, we notice it. We notice the change in our bodies, in our mind, in our emotions. But when we don't, when we mind our own business, and I'm not saying let's not be compassionate, au contraire, I'm very compassionate, I'm very caring, but I also need to know when to do this. When I'm asked, when I'm asked, but I wasn't asked. I wasn't asked. I wasn't given a permission to do this. And so, this is one of those things that's how I feel right now. That's how I feel today is until I'm asked, maybe I should just stay put, take care of myself, mind my own business, love myself. My father knows I love him. We've been corresponding, calling. He called me this morning again. He calls me at 8 o'clock in the morning. Yesterday, he called me at 8 o'clock in the morning and tells me he's going to bed. I'm just blessed that right now he's still alive and breathing. And it's hard for me to say this and to say this publicly, that right now I'm just grateful that he's still alive and that he's still breathing and he's been calling me. Because I don't think I want to spend that much energy right now trying to control something I can't. I don't know, this is food for thought. You might not be in agreement with me, but I want you to just to pay attention to how you feel mind-wise, body-wise, when you're trying to control something that you can't, and that you want to. You want to make change. You want this person to do something different, and it's not happening. And that energy that's spent wanting that more than they do is what's causing that pain or that feeling in us. I want you to be thinking about that. That is what I've noticed. And I think that if we minded our own business, and when asked that we give freely when asked, then our energy is going to flow and it's going to be received. It's not going to bounce back in that sense. I wanted so much to give and to help, but it wasn't accepted. So that frustration that I felt just built up in me, which brought me more tiredness. So I think I'm kind of going towards um, the direction of, and I'm going to take this one day at a time. I'm telling you, I don't think it's one of those big aha things, but I'm leaning more towards when I'm asked, I will give freely. I'll be there. But if I'm not, I'm going to have to learn to manage my frustrations or my upsets or my love differently so that I can be healthier for myself and for others around me. I don't know. I hope that makes sense to you. Anyways, that's all I wanted to share with you. On that note, my name is Linda G. Robert. I'm your solution lady and your coach. And for more information on my services, please visit me at www.lindagrobert.com. You can also send me an email at linda@lindagrobert.com. And this is going to be posted on YouTube and on Facebook. So if you want to add comments, please do share. Thank you. Have yourself a great day.